All right, friends, today we are in the second part of chapter 8, most of chapter 8, and the beginning of chapter 9 of Luke. And what we've seen kind of a bouncing back between some sections where Jesus is teaching and then some sections where we're learning about some things that Jesus did. And here, this whole section that we're reading today is about some things that Jesus did. So as we read this today, whether you've already read it or you're going to read it, I think this is what we're going to kind of be reflecting on. And I'm going to highlight a few things. I think we do well here when we're reading stories about Jesus to try to picture what his life was like, his earthly life, to really get our minds fixed in the fact that this is not some kind of spiritual fairy tale, but that this was a real man walking in real places, interacting with real people. So try to get like the Bible story, like the cartoonish version of this out of your head and picture this stuff like in the dirt. Like picture his feet in the dirt. Picture like the look on his face and on the faces of the people that he's interacting with. This is real life stuff. What we're doing here is we're getting to know Jesus. We're getting to know who Jesus was in his earthly life. So it's a longer passage. I can't cover all of it, but I want to highlight just a few things that I'm seeing here this time around. First, look at these first few verses that we're reading, 19 through 21. It's this weird interaction that involves Jesus' mother, Mary, and his brothers. They came to him. They couldn't reach him because of the crowds, and he was told, "Your mother and your brothers are standing outside, desiring to see you." So mom and brothers are standing outside of where he is. Come on out, Jesus. But he answered them and said, "My mother and my brothers are those who hear the word of God and do it." Now, I've always seen this as just kind of another one of his like teachings, that who I am most connected with are those that I'm like spiritually connected with. And sure, there's some of that. But what some people have pointed to that I've noticed recently is this may point to the fact that Jesus was at time at odds with his family. That, we don't really know anything about Joseph. We don't know what happened with Joseph, but Joseph isn't mentioned beyond because of those first stories. But he seems to be at odds at times with his mom and with his brothers. They don't seem to be supporting what he's doing, perhaps, here. There's some kind of tension that seems to have been caused. Now, there's some traditions that are going to say, no way, that's definitely not the case. But again, as we kind of dig into the human person of Jesus, is it not the case that perhaps there was some tension here? It's something that I've been kind of trying to explore recently and to think through. Jesus didn't sin, but it doesn't mean that life wasn't hard. It doesn't mean that there weren't difficulties in these relationships. You skip down, and one of my favorite stories is here in verses 40 through the end of chapter 8. There's a girl who has died. And what Jesus says is, he says in verse 52, "Don't weep, for she's not dead, but sleeping." Everybody around him knows that, no, sorry, Jesus, but she's dead. And then they laughed at him. And what I go back to here, and this is something that's something new, that's something that I saw a long time ago, this inspired me for the last decade or so, is that sometimes what Jesus knows is going to happen, what Jesus is going to accomplish, were we to know about it now, it would seem utterly laughable. It would seem just insane. That doesn't make any sense. If Jesus were to come in to tell you today what he intends to do, it would be laughable. And it inspires me to ask myself the question, am I praying laughable prayers? Like, am I expecting God to do things that are utterly laughable? Am I living with that kind of expectation? And the last thing to point out here is the last little bit that we're reading. Well, not the verses 1 through 6 of chapter 9. Then there's one last little bit. But you see that Jesus starts putting these folks to work. He's got these 12. In other Gospels, they're referred to as disciples, like the 12 disciples. Here they're called the 12 apostles. He puts them to work. And we see is that Jesus is bringing people into the fold, not just to bless them, but to send them out. And of course, it, again, helps me to understand Jesus better, that he is equipping people and sending them. And it makes me ask questions about, hey, how am I discerning where Jesus is sending me? Not just big picture, like me being a pastor, or you like doing whatever you are, kind of big picture with your life, but even in the little things. How am I being sent out today? When I hit stop on this video, how am I being sent out even today? So I hope that this section has been helpful to you, just getting to know who Jesus is a little bit. Those are some of the things that I'm reflecting on. I'll be curious to know, and you can put these in the comments, so you can email any of us that are part of this Bible study. What is it that you're learning about who the person of Jesus is? God bless you, friends. We'll see you next time.